Okay, welcome back. As we continue to learn on our Motzei Shabbos marathon, and once again we are sponsored by A.B. Spry and family for the benefit of their family becoming nachas from their entire family by Michal Avram, by Michal Avram Chavin, that every one of us should learn Shas with Gesund. And we have in mind for Esther Fadel Bas Chana, Pinchas Menachem Ben Leah, they should have a refuah shalema b'seich shar chayla Yisrael. We are holding Tanya Nami Hoki. If you remember, we said that there's a 3-day limit, that after 3 days you have to be concerned that it's a lost article. Tanya Nami Hoki, bottom line of Lamed Amid Beis. Motza talis v'kardim, if you find a talis or an axe, bi'isratya, lying on a public highway, or para ratza bein akramim, or a cow running through the vineyard, harizu aveda. Talis b'tzad geder, if you see a talis on the side of a fence, or behind a fence, kardim b'tzad geder, or an axe behind the fence, which looks like the owner might have left it there, or upara roya bein akramim, or a cow pasturing by the vineyard, ein zu aveda, that's not an aveda, but gimel yomim ze'achazeh, if it's lying there ready for 3 days, then harizu aveda, then that's a lost article. Now, as we welcome in Marshall Castle, joining us in Chicago, I guess it's just like a little bit after Shabbos now in Chicago, right?
Yeah. No, it's still Shabbos. I decided to join anyway.
Don't say that. Come on. Even none of us would think that you would do that. We know that you do a lot of things, but you certainly would not do that. You don't want to learn that much.
The Purim is over already. Why'd you put on Purim costume?
Now.
Must it again.
Now. 4 lines from the top of Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, as we're joined by Sir Marshall for the second daf. We're very glad to have you. Ra mayim sheshoitfinu bon. If we see water flooding and about to mamish drown out Marshall's field, you have a mitzvah to make a fence if Marshall isn't around to protect his land. So now that's a big chiddush, because it sounds like there's a din of avshavas aveda even by real estate. Now here the Gemara points this out. Amar Rava l'kol avedas achicha. It says l'kol l'rabbis avedas karka, to include even if it's a damage of real estate. Says Gemara, which is a chiddush. Amalei Rav Kananya l'Rava, Tanya de Messiah. There's a brisa that will adduce proof to this teaching of yours. Why? Because it says Ra mayim sheshoit from the barn. If we see water flooding at Marshall's property, you have to fence in front of it. So you see that there's a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda even for real estate. Amalei, so he said, Imishim ha loy tesai. That wouldn't be a proof to me, because it's talking about where Marshall had some crops in the field, and you're doing it to save the crops. Says the Gemara, if there's loose bales of tfuah, then of course you have to save it. What's the chiddush? Says the Gemara, where the crops were fully grown, but they're still attached to the ground. So Mao the same kavan that tzricha la'ara, since they need the ground, kigu for the arya dami. They're like the ground, and maybe there's no mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. Kamash Malan, since they're fully grown, and we have a din kala oimid liksar kikatzer dami. Whatever's ready to be harvested is as if it's already harvested, and therefore that's why you have to build the fence. There's no proof, however, that there's a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda on real estate. Matzah chamar upara. Now, here the Gemara is going to point out that there's a little bit of a contradiction. It says if you find a para or a chamar walking on the road, you have to return it. That implies that if it's running on the road, so if you find it walking on the road, you don't have to return it. That implies that if it's running, you have to return it. Then it says that if you find a cow running in the vineyard, you have to return it. Because running in the vineyard is dangerous. It could hurt itself on the vines. That implies, but if it's running on the road, you don't have to return it. It also says if it's walking on the road, you have to return it. That implies if it's walking in a vineyard, if it's walking on the road, you don't have to return it. That implies if it's walking in a vineyard, you do. But then it says if it's running in the vineyard, you have to return it, which implies that walking in the vineyard, you don't have to return it. So there's a lot of contradictory implications over here that's making, Dr. Block dizzy. What's going on over here? Let's see it inside. He's not getting dizzy, just getting started. Dr. Bach says, I could take a chok tonight, if only the Rebbe would be so smart.
That's for sure. But I am behind a little bit, but I'm in the middle of the parah at the summits. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah? You like that share?
Yeah.
That's a special share, yeah. That's a special share. Okay. Matzah chamar upara. So the Gemara says, "O gufa kasha." There's an internal contradiction over here. Amarta matzah chamar upara royim b'derech. If you find a donkey and a cow pasturing on the road, ein zu aveda. Mashma royim b'derech hu d'lo have aveda. Ha'ratza b'derech only if it's pasturing, but if it's running on the road, or v'roya bein akramim, or if it's pasturing in the vineyard, where the vines are dangerous, havi aveda. It's a lost article. Ema seifa chamor v'kelev hafuchim. A donkey whose equipment is overturned, a para ratza bein akramim, or a cow running between the vineyard, harizu aveda. Oh, when is it an aveda? Only ratza bein akramim. It's running in the vineyard. Who da havi aveda? Haratza b'derech. But if it's running on the road, or v'roya bein akramim, or pasturing in the vineyard, ein zu aveda. So it's a big, its deductions are completely contradictory. So Amar Abaya, so Abaya says, what is going on over here? Why is it not trying to do that? This is not working at all. Amar Abaya, so Abaya says, Yagid olav reyo. Now this Yagid olav reyo, which literally means that the thunder will testify. When you hear thunder, that testifies that there's rain. But it also means that its friend will testify, its colleague will testify on it. Tana roya b'derech d'lo havi aveda. It says if it pastures on the road, it's not an aveda. And the same thing is true if it pastures in a vineyard. V'uadin l'roya bein akramim. And tana rotza bein akramim d'havi aveda. If it's running in the vineyard, it's an aveda. V'uadin l'rotza b'derech. And the same thing is true, it's running on the road. That's not a good answer. Because if it's true that it's not a good answer at all. Because if it's true that running on the road is also an aveda, then it should have said that, which is a bigger chiddush. Because running in the vineyard is where it could get hurt on the vines. Running on the road where there's no vines, to say that that's still a lost article is a bigger chiddush. So Amalei Rava Iyagidol of Reyo Lisnei Kilta, let it say the less dramatic case, V'kol Shechein Chamirta. In other words, running on the road would be less dramatic than running in the vineyard. So Lisnei Ratza B'derech Ta'av Aveda, let it say if it's running on the road, it's an Aveda. V'kol Shechein Ratza Ben Akram. And surely if it's running in the vineyard. V'lisnei Roya Ben Akramim, and let it say pasturing in the vineyard, that's not an Aveda, the Lehavi Aveda, even though there are vines there. Because Shein Raya B'derech. Ella says, you're right. You're right. There's a different pshat over here. El Amarava. I wonder if I can. You know what? I'm going to put it on. El Amarava. Rather, Rava says this is the way to reconcile what's going on over here. Rotza arotza loy kasha. Running on running is not a difficulty. Hoda apa legabe debra. One is where it's on the road and it's running to outside the city. Hoda apa legabe masa. One is where it's running towards the city. So if it's running, you're right, there's contradictory implications. It says if it's roya b'derech, it's not a aveda. Mashma, if it's running on the road, it is aveda. But then it says if it's ruts in the krumim, it's an aveda. But if it's ruts on the road, it's not. The answer is there's times where running on the road is an aveda, and there's times when it's not. If it's running with its face towards outside the city, it's a lost article. If it's running towards the city, then it's not a lost article. Also, says the Gemara, Raya nami loy kasha. We had a stira. What happens if it pastures in the vineyard? So it says if it's Raya b'derech, it's not an aveda, but if it's Raya in the vineyard, it is. But then it says if it's Rotza in the vineyard, it's an Aveda, implying that if it's only pasturing in the vineyard, it's not an Aveda. So the Gemara says it's also not a difficulty. Kan ba'avedas gufa, kan ba'avedas karka. One is talking about if the animal is lost, and one is talking about if the person's property is lost. So if you see it pasturing in a vineyard, the animal is not lost, but you have to worry about the property of the owner of the vineyard, that it's destroying his grapes. That is a lost article. Kikatani raya b'derech loy havi aveda, haraya ben akramim havi aveda, where it's pasturing in the vineyard, it is a lost article. That's ba'avedas karka. That's because we're worried about the loss of the person's grapes. Where it's running through the vineyard, it's an aveda. But if it's pasturing, you don't have to return it. That's talking about ba'aveda skufa. There you don't have to worry that the animal is lost. Why? The rotza bein akramim, if it's running amongst the vineyard, there maskiva, there it could hurt itself, banging into the vines. V'raya bein akramim, but pasturing in the vineyard, loy maskiva. So the Gemara says, yeah, but v'raya bein akramim, if it's pasturing in the vineyard, what do you mean that there are times you don't have to stop it? You should always worry about the person's grape. Even if it's not going to get damaged, that's damaging the person's grapes. Says, well, you know when you don't have to worry about that? When the vineyard is owned by a guy. Bidikusi, it's owned by a guy. You don't have a mitzvah of a Shavas Aveda for a guy's property. Says the Gemara, but if a Yid's cow is in the guy's property, you have to worry about the cow because the guy is going to kill it for trespassing. Maybe he'll shoot it because it's trespassing. Says the Gemara, it's in a place where they don't shoot first. They warn first. Says the Gemara, but how do you know it's the first time? Maybe it's the second time. Says maybe it's the second time already, and they already warned it. Says the Gemara, if they warned the owner, V'loi is daruba, and he wasn't careful and let it wander into the guy's property again, then vade aveda medasi. Then he just acted negligently, and where he acted negligently, then you're not mechuyev to return it. And now we start a new sugya Very interesting sugya, where we're learning in this sugya about where the Torah says things more than once. Like by Hashavas Aveda, it says Hoshev Teshivein. By Shiluach HaKan, sending away the mother before you take the young, it says Shaleach Teshalach. By Tzedakah, it says Nasan Titain. By giving a gift to an Eved Ivri after you free him after 6 years, it says Hanik Tanik. You should give a gift. So it says things on a double lashon. So we want to know why it says these double lashons. So zero barcha. If Shelley returned it and it ran away again, he returned it and ran away again. Amalei ahum rabban l'rava. How do you know this from Hashev Teshivim? Maybe it's only 2 times. Ema Hashev chada zimna. Hashev is once. Teshivim trei zimna. And Teshivim is twice. And maybe after 2 times you don't have to return it anymore. Amalei, no. Hashev is a mitzvah to return afilu kuf pa'amim mashma. Even 100 times. Then why does it say Teshivim? Teshivim comes to tell you something else. It comes to tell me that you don't have to return it into his house. You could put it into his courtyard or any other protected place. I only know that you could turn it to his house. How do I know that you could return it to his protected garden, to his protected rooms? So the Gemara says, hey, chidami. Ida mintera, if it's a guarded area, pshita, why can't you return it? Ida light mintera, if it's not a guarded area, amai, then why would you be allowed to put it there? Says the Gemara, lailam de mintera. It's a protected area. But v'hakamash malan de beloy ba'inon das bailam. And the chiddush is that you don't need to alert the person that you're returning it. Normally you have to, let's say you're a thief, you have to tell the person that you're returning it, except for a lost article, you can return it, as long as you put it into a guarded place, you don't have to tell him that you're returning it. Now, the next double lashon, shaleach tishalach, you should surely send it away. So the Gemara says, the din is that when you send away the mother, then you could take the eggs or the young. But if the mother returns, you have to send it away again, and again, and again, and again. So the Gemara says, Ema shaleach choda is 1 time, zimna, shal trei zimna, and shal tells you 2 times. Maybe more than 2 times you don't have to send it away. Amalei shaleach afilu mea pamim mashma. Even 100 times. You can't take it if it keeps on coming back until you send it away. Tishaleach, ainli ela l'dvar rishus. The only time you have to send away the mother if you want the mother for a barbecue. L'dvar mitzvah minayin. Let's say you want the bird for the purification of a mitzayra, where you need 2 birds. Maybe then you don't have to send it away. Even if you would need it for a mitzvah, you still have to send it away. It says, you should rebuke your friend. The is 1 time, and the second time, but more than 2 times you don't have to rebuke. That means even 100 times. It's only a Rav that has to be Mechiach the Talmud. Talmud l'Rav minayin. What if the Talmud sees the Rav do something wrong? How do you know that he has a mitzvah of Teichacha? Talmud Teichiach mikol makom. Ozoiv tazoiv imay. You should surely help him. But that means that if you see somebody's animal and it's groveling on the ground, that you have to unload the animal. So it says, Oziv Taziv, Ainli Ela Balav Imai, I only know if the owner is going to help you. She'ain Balav Imai Minayin, how do you know if the owner is not helping? He's too old to help. How do you know you still have a mitzvah? Talmud Leimer, Oziv Taziv, Mikol Mokim. Same thing it says to load an animal. Hakim Tokim, Ainli Ela Balav Imai, She'ain Balav Imai Minayin. How do you know you have a mitzvah even if the owner is there, but the owner is not strong enough? So the Gemara says, why do we need the pasuk to say both unloading the animal and also loading the animal? So the Gemara says, we need both. That you have to help to unload the animal. That's because unloading the animal, if the animal is on the ground with stuff on its back, it's in a lot of pain. There's suffering of the animal, and also because the owner's stuff is on the ground. To load the animal is not an element of tzar b'alechaim. I might think, and there's no loss of money, his animal is not groveling in pain on the ground. I might think you don't have a mitzvah to help. The Ashmin and Tina, and if it only says loading the animal, that's because loading the animal, the Gemara says you're allowed to take money for. Mishum de B'schar. So that's why you have to do it. Aval Prika, unloading de Bechinam, where you don't get paid, Malay. I might think you don't have to do it, Tzricha. Says the Gemara, Reb Shimon de Amar Aftina Bechinam, that even loading the animal you have to do for free. So then, if you have to even load the animal, which doesn't involve any tsar or any chasar and kiss, then surely you have to unload it. Reb Shimon Reb Shimon says you have to say both, because if it would say one, we don't know. Ozav Tazav and Hokim Tokim is not clear. Either one could mean unloading. It can mean help and unload, or it could pick it up and unload the stuff that's caused it to collapse. So therefore, it has to say both, because otherwise you would think it only means unloading and not loading. Now, why does it need to say these two, which is also helping a person, and also the mitzvah of Hashavas Aved? Ask Gemara, Lama li lemichtav hani tarte. Why does it have to say these two? V'lama li lemichtav aveda, and also a lost article. That you have to return an lost article. Tzricha, says Gemara, that's also needed. Di kasirach mana hani tarte prika and tina mishum de tsar de mara ise. There's inconvenience for the owner, because either his animal's on the floor with all his stuff, or he needs to get his stuff transported. Saradi dies, and there's also pain to the animal, because even by loading the animal, there's an element of pain, explains Rashi, because it's easier for the animal when two people load it, so you could do it more gently, than when one person loads it and pushes it on. Aval Aveda, but a lost article, the Tsar de Marisa, if you find a pen, so there's a loss to the master, but the Tsar Dida lesson, there's no Tsar Balichayim, aim alo. The Ashmina Naveda, well, a lost article, if you don't pick it up, it's going to get stolen, it's going to get lost. Mishum Delesa Lamarbada, the owner is not there. But when the owner is there, then you don't have to stop and help. Aval, by loading or unloading, when the owner is there, Aval, Hani Tarte, the Isa Lamarabada, aim aloy, I might think you don't have to stop. Tzricha. Continuing discussing double languages. As we are moving along here, going on to the last quarter, a small daf on this Motzi Shabbos marathon, going into 1 hour and 6 minutes of learning Torah together with everybody. What a wonderful way to start a new week. What a wonderful way to start a new week. This is exactly what Hashem wants, to start a new week with Torah. It should be a week full of Torah and good things. Mois yuma samake. If a person commits murder, he should be surely killed, surely executed. Why the double lashon? That's only, I only know that you give him sayif, you behead him like is instructed in the Torah. If you can't give him the court execution, how do we know Shata Rashi La Misa you could kill him? B'kol Misa Shata Yochel La Misa in any way you can. You must be Kol Makom. He's a menace to society, and you could put him to death in any way possible. Hake Sake. This is talking about the people of an Iranidachas, a city that has gone astray after idolatry, where they're supposed to die by sword. That's only the execution that it says. If you can't put them to death, you could execute them in any way possible. Now the next repetition is by if you gave somebody a loan and he gave you collateral. So the Torah says that in two different places that you should return him the lost article if he's poor. So if it's pajamas, you should return it to him in the night. And if it's his blazer during the day, then you should return it to him during the day. So in both it says Hashev Toshiv and Chavel Tachbal. It says a double lashon. So Hashev Toshiv, you should surely return the lost article. That's only if you took the collateral with the permission of the court. He didn't pay and the court sent an agent and you took collateral. If you took it without an agent of the court, how do you know you have a mitzvah to return it? Similarly, it says Chavel Tachbal, you should return with the permission of Bezdin. How do we know? So why do we need two psukim that you return the collateral? That if it's his blazer, then you should return it to him until Ad Bava Shemesh, until the setting of the sun. And if it's a ksus laila, if it's pajamas, you should return it to him for the night. Pasayach tiftach. This is a mitzvah of tzedakah. You should open up your hand to a poor person. I only know the poor of your city. Maybe you could say, look, you're from a different city, it's not my responsibility. Even if it's a poor person from another city. Then it says, Nasein Titain, you should surely give. I might think that you have to give only if you could give a big gift. If it's a small amount, you'll say, wow, what's a small amount going to help? I'm not going to give a small amount. I'm saving up my charity until it comes to a big amount. You should give even a small amount because we all know, we go to shul and people go around and everybody gives $1 and there's 60 people in the shul and he goes to 5 minyanim, that's $300. So pruta, mitzdarf l'cheshbon gadol. Hanik tanik, if you have an Eved Ivri, after 6 years, you give him gifts. It's called anaka. Ein li elishin is baruch habayis b'glaloi. The double lashon is, I only know that you have to give him the gift when he leaves if the house was blessed because of him. He was a good servant. Then manikin, I would think loin is baruch habayis b'glaloi, but if the house wasn't blessed by his being there, minayin, how do we know you still give him gifts after his 6 years of slavery? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah doesn't hold that way. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says if the house wasn't blessed because of him, then you don't have to give him the gift. Or Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Damin is Baruch Habayis B'Glaloi, Manikim Loi, but Loin is Baruch, if the house wasn't Bayis B'Glaloi, wasn't blessed because of him, Ein Manikim, then Tanik Lamali. Why does it say the double lashon Hanik Tanik? Says Gemara, Dibra Torah Kaloshim B'nei Adam. You're right. Then it says that the Torah speaks in the common vernacular, and when the Torah wants to encourage someone to do it, so it repeats it like we do, and we want to tell someone, you should do it. We repeat it for emphasis. Have tavitenu. This is a law that you should extend to someone alone. So why does it say a double lashon have tavitenu? You should extend alone. I would only think that you have a mitzvah to give someone a loan if he doesn't have, and he just doesn't want to take money of tzedakah. So give him a loan. If he has, but he's just cheap. He has, and he says, look, I'm going to take from others rather than spend my own money. He can't bring himself. There are people like that. There are people that have money in the bank, and they don't pay their bills. They can't bring themselves to write out a check. They just can't do it. So he asks for a loan. How do you know, Minayin, that it's a mitzvah to give it to this poor miser, and you'll get the money back from his children when he dies? Now, says Gemara, Reb Shimon says you don't have to care for such a guy. Reb Shimon, if he has the money, he just doesn't want to spend it, you don't have to give your money to somebody because he's so cheap. Let him learn what it means to be cheap. Tavitenu lamali. So again, the Gemara says, Dibra Torah Kalashim B'nei Adam. The Torah speaks in the common vernacular. We're going to stop here now, Rabbi Yisrael, and we're going to learn the Mishnah Yomis now. Again, a reminder, two things. First of all, shir tomorrow and the whole week is at 5 minutes to 8. 5 minutes to 8. 5 minutes later, shir tomorrow, and the whole week is at 5 to 8. And Mitzvah Hashem, I hope that Hashem should bless me, that I should be able to give a chak. That's Kisisa day 4 in Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow night. We are looking for a sponsor for the chak. We are also looking for the sponsor for the Haggadah Shir this week, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. Also, there's an opportunity we're about... Also, there's an opportunity to learn to sponsor Mishnah Nazir, which will be starting in Mitzvah Hashem sometime this week. And now we're going to learn the Mishnah Yomis.